This is the first homework 1 video for data analysis with statistical software. So this is the document that I'm referencing, so you can have your own copy available, help you figure out what I'm doing. You're going to need a browser. We're going to look at some data. I'm going to start over, and this is the page we're going to start on. First, I'm going to give you a little overview. So I'm going to be essentially following this document. In this course, we'll be familiarizing ourselves with the user interface for several different types of statistical software. In this particular assignment, we're going to be using StatCrunch. We're going to be downloading, saving, and analyzing a set of data which will be created just for you, for your use in this course. It's completely bogus data. It's computer generated. You only have to download and save it once, and it will be used again in future homework assignments. If you initially have trouble, you can keep trying again until you get it. But once you get it, don't do it again later. If you lose your file, just ask me for a copy. I have a copy. But if you regenerate your data, it'll erase the old one that I have stored. Okay, so the data file is going to contain a header line followed by 100,000 observation lines. Let's see if I have one sitting here. You can open these in a piece of software if you like. And we will talk a little bit in class about how to use spreadsheets. But you can see what it looks like. There's going to be a group name, which is a letter of the alphabet. And you're going to have X and Y, which are floating point, and T and S, which are just zeros and ones. Now you may have a little glitch on StatCrunch. If you have, you have a capital T and a lowercase t, and a capital S and a lowercase s. If this happens to you, you may want to rename T as T1 and S as S1, just to get around the user interface problems with StatCrunch, because it complains when you have variable names that are the same as your group names. I don't know why. Okay, but that's what your data are going to look like. Everybody's data will be just a little bit different. Some of them are going to be correlated in certain ways and some are not. Okay, so the way you're going to do your workflow is you're going to have, this is my recommendation here, you're going to have some kind of Word document open, whatever brand, I don't care, because when you're done you're going to export as a PDF. And you're going to put your name and which homework it is and whatever the date is. I don't have a due date yet, so I'm just making this up. And then you're going to put comments of your own, and as you go along you're going to cut and paste artwork into this document. When you're ready to save it, save off your draft with just all your personal notes in this document. And when you're ready to, when you're almost ready to turn it in, or you're preparing to turn it in, save a different name because what you tell yourself in your personal notes may be different from what you tell me in your final copy. So I would expect you would end up with 2 copies, a copy for yourself and a copy for me. So anyway, that's my advice. As you work through the lab, be cognizant of the items that I'm telling you to do just for your experience versus the items that I want you to hand in. And I'll indicate that by putting the items for hand in will be in bold. Please use complete sentences. Write it so an outside reader will be able to follow what's going on. The homework instructions will be written with the intention that you'll be able to do most of it without following along on the video, but I know that I would end up using the video, and I suspect you would, because a lot of these instructions make sense only after you've done them. Hopefully, as time goes on, you'll be able to follow the paper directions more fluidly. Let's begin. So let's go to StatCrunch first, actually. You want to go to StatCrunch American EDU. Now, I've already logged on. You haven't. So you may have to log on. If you have any trouble logging on, the problems are usually in the browser. You'll think the problem's in your account, but it's not. It's actually in your browser. So you can usually just dump your cookies, and that usually takes care of the problem. If dumping your cookies does not take care of your problem, then you should download a different browser. A lot of Macintosh users have a lot of trouble logging on with their default browser that comes with their computer, but not all Mac users. It really depends on your particular, the time when you bought your Mac or what was loaded onto it when you bought it. But I've seen Windows users struggle with this too. But it always ends up being a browser problem. So just try dumping your cookies, and if that doesn't work, then you want to try a new browser. And one of those two tricks should resolve your problem. Okay, and then you go over to my website, donnadietz.com, and the subdirectory called data. And we're going to create data. So your AUID has a format 2 letters and then some numbers. I'm just making this up. It usually has an A on the end, or a B if you have really common first initial and last initial combination, or something like that. And then you hit submit. Just do this once. If I were to redo this again, for example, let me go back and just show you. I could submit this again, but I'll get completely different data. Well, maybe I'll get the same data. Hold on a second. See, completely different data. Now, I don't like the fact that S&T showed up in my group names because that's just kind of annoying, so I'm just going to do this again. There we go. Now O is a group name. But anyway, I can do this as many times as I want, but once I'm happy, I don't do it again, because every time I do that, it regenerates my data set on the system. And that's the file that I will have as an emergency backup for you. So if you do it again later in the semester, then you're going to end up with overwriting your backup file that I have for you. On the other hand, if you just want an extra file, you can just like put another number on the end of your user ID and submit like another thing like that. And now you'll have 2 different sets of data, and I can retrieve both of them for you. Okay. That's enough about that. So now you have data, but we have to capture it and put it in StatCrunch and save it so we don't lose it. Right now it's just a whole bunch of junk on the screen. You don't want to scroll through 100,000 lines. So you copy it. First you select all, copy. Now we head on over to StatCrunch because we're already logged in. We say load by paste. Make sure this says comma. Make sure this is toggled on. I'm clicking here in this box. For me, I'm doing Control V, but I'm not going to do that because I want to show you you can right click and say paste. Both of those things work. And you should be able to see a preview show up down here. If you find that you only have every other row, then you probably pasted saying white space was the delimiter. If that happens, just redo everything. Or just repaste it. It's still in your buffer, so you could repaste it again. Okay, now you got the data in StatCrunch. We want to save it for later. So data export. Everything should be selected. Delimiter should be comma. It's just everything the way it's defaulted. I'm very sorry that you can't change the name. I don't know why. And so then what you have to do is, for me, my default directory is on my desktop. And I can go and change the name. Data for class. Whatever you want to call it, so that it makes some sense. And then put it in a folder where you'll be able to find it later. Okay, that all takes you up through step 4. Now we're going to start the academic portion of the lab. That's all kind of like bookkeeping. You've got your data, and now we're ready to plow ahead. We're going to create a pie chart because it's a really basic thing people can relate to. It's something you often do with your data. You could do histograms, but I just like to do pie charts. Actually, you can't do a histogram. Well, you can, but not on groups. We want to do a pie chart against group. Very simple. This will be the first graphic that you include in your write-up. This one is pretty even. They're not usually this perfectly even, but you should get about 25% of your data in each of 4 categories. But again, they're usually not this perfectly balanced. That's a little unusual. Okay, so that goes in your write-up. So most systems have a certain way of taking some kind of screenshot where you do this sort of thing. Okay, and then you just like save that somewhere for later or dump it in your document right away. It's going to get graphically intense, so I recommend you put everything in a folder together, probably in a folder with your data for now, since it's your first homework. There's also ways of saving the picture, but I found that they're kind of glitchy and hard to use. So I recommend that for now, for what we're doing, there's no need for high quality images. Reasonable quality images come from just screen clipping your computer. It's fine. You're not putting a publication in a journal, so you don't need to do anything other than screenshot. Even for presentations that you might give on a big screen, it's still okay if you've just used a screenshot off your computer. Okay, step 6, we're going to create a table with summary stats on our columns sorted by group. So stat, summary stats on the columns. Let's select all of them. Sort by group. What I don't want is I don't want all these different statistics. I just want mean, n, and I want n, mean, and standard deviation. And for me, I get that by holding holding control while I click. So if you hold control while you click, then you can select things that are not in sequence with one another. But for a Mac user, you have to go look up the key sequence for doing that. So just Google Macintosh, what do you do for control click? Or I want to select multiple items. So it's a standard thing. It's not just for statistical software. It's a standard user interface that's common to your computer system. Okay, now I recommend that you do like 2 screenshots for something like this. Sorry about the coughing. It's not as bad as it sounds. So I would do a screenshot like this. And then I would do another screenshot like this. I wouldn't use that because there's something that was in the way, so I'm going to try this again. There we go. And then I would save that. So that goes in your report. I'm not going to show you the screenshots after this. I will just say take a screenshot. Okay, now we want side-by-side box plots. So we're going to graph box plot. You can play with all these different options. I'm just going to show you some of the more common ones. I'm only going to look at y. This is our so-called response variable, even though I've generated x and y kind of randomly, and either one could be the response variable, but we're just going to assume that x is the independent variable and y is the response variable. And so again, take a screenshot of this. Now we're going to create grouped frequency histograms. But just pick one of these to put in your write-up because I don't need to see all of them. But you can see by scrolling through them, that's what they look like. They're not all centered at 0, but see, like for example, this one's centered around -20 somewhere, stuff like that. Okay, so we're presuming this is a massive sample. We've taken a sample of, we sampled 100,000, no, 10,000. How many did I say? 10,000. There's 10,000 in our sample. And it's from an even larger population. And we would like to estimate the population proportions based on our samples of T and S by group. So we're going to create confidence intervals split by group for these two Boolean variables. That's a total of 8, right? So there's 4 groups and 2 variables, so each one is going to have a huge number, and we're going to create proportion statistics to estimate the proportion of T's and S's that are 0 and 1. I'll do it for now not grouped, just to show you that we only get 2 to start out with. Now we're going to say 1 sample. It's ironic because we really have 8 of them, but we're going to pretend it's 1 because that'll allow us to do them all in parallel. Okay, let's just do T and S for now. Success, put 1 because it's a Boolean variable and we only have 2 choices, 0 or 1. So I'm going to call 1 a success. I mean, if this were a floating point variable, you could say like greater than 1 or greater than 7 or whatever your success is. Alright, I'm going to come back and group by group. Click this. Be sure to click this and just leave the other items as default. Okay. I want you to notice that for the variables T and S, they're both close to 50%. So T is more than 50% ones. It's about 51% ones. And S is about 53% ones. Okay, so it's not that exciting. We're pretty sure about this. But let's see if it's different by group. And this is the part you want to screen capture. And you could do that in 1 or 2 screen captures, whatever works for you. Well, this is pretty interesting. So notice that our upper and lower limits are really close together. It's because we have a massive data set. And that gives us a high amount of confidence in guessing what the actual population parameter is. Same down here. And this is interesting. For S, these numbers are much closer together. S doesn't vary as much, but it does vary by group. But the T variable, it varies a lot by group. That's pretty weird. Okay, so there's more structure we're exploring to figure out different things. What about if X and Y are correlated? We're going to do a lot with this in the next video, but we're going to just start for now with a quick correlation to see. We're going to select X and Y. Oops. And we're going to group by group. And we're going to make note of the correlations. So we're saying within each group, X and Y, within each group, X and Y are correlated somehow. And we notice in our data set that we just created, the U group has a positive correlation, and the other 3 have a negative correlation. Okay, that's something to make note of. And W is the most highly correlated of the 4 groups. So notice that U has the highest positive correlation, but this has the highest negative correlation. So it's actually more strongly correlated than U. So we would expect that for group W, it will hug its line of best fit better than the other data sets. And we'll find that out in the next video, if that's true or not. So this is a good place to stop for the first video.